Not sure if other people are hearing a very strong echo.
I think there's a feedback with the TD pitch pulse and the UFO.
Yes, I am.
Just, I'm hearing a very strong echo of my own voice, Mike.
I'm sorry. I really can't hear you well. I don't know if it's just me, but the sound is small.
Sorry, I couldn't make out the question.
The sound is terrible. Like, I hear really a long sound when I'm talking. Oh, all right.
Oh, I think now everything seems good. Sorry, I couldn't make out the question. Okay.
No, it was terrible.
Sorry about that. Thank you very much. Okay, so we can start with the first presentation. We also have a translator here for today after the presentation so that the students can answer the questions in French and the translator will then translate into English. So Nancy, I just want to confirm that you're also here and can hear me.
Yes, I just got moved into the room so I could hear the presentation.
Perfect. Wonderful. Thank you. So HEC Montreal. So judges, you can please scroll to the green sheet in your judge handbook. Students, please state your school name so we can show you. Oh, excuse me, you've already done that. So let's start. HEC Montreal, you may now begin your presentation.
Would you lend money to poor people just with trust as a collateral? And we don't talk about trust funds, but trust. There's a population in Canada, young, growing, and full of ambition, whose businesses grow dying faster as others. You know where I'm coming. Indigenous people represent a big opportunity for Canada, but they face a lot of barriers. In fact, racial, geographicals, combined with a lack of resources, prevent them to reach their high potential. The Indigenous women are the most affected by those barriers, but they tend to be the most productive when it comes to their businesses. So what is the solution and why choosing women?
It's to give them what they need. Women are the most likely to pay back and help their community. Realize that the First Nation women entrepreneurs have three big barriers to start their own businesses: access to capital, access to network, access to education, and mostly financial education. We have found a solution that will cover these three aspects, a solution that already proven itself in Bangladesh in the 70s, the Grameen Bank. But we're going to modify it, improve it, so that it reaches full potential here in Canada to make it meet the needs of the Indigenous Canadian women. Women will then be encouraged to go beyond the barrier they face. But how are they different?
Well, we will give small loans based on trust to Indigenous women who tend to have an interest in entrepreneurship. This idea is not simply to give money to Indigenous people and just let them move out. There will be 7 conditions to maximize solidarity and education. We will support them throughout the business creation process, throughout workshops, networking events with Indigenous and non-Indigenous businesswomen. We will ensure that they will receive the network, the education, and the capital necessary to launch themselves into the world of entrepreneurship. But where do we find them?
By going directly in their community to talk to them about the project in a door-to-door, face-to-face way. But we will also leverage the Indian Business Corporation Fund by asking them for the contact of the people who weren't accepted into their loan program. And by asking the Moscow Production and Consulting their help in leveraging the Women Network Group. And what will be next after that?
We help them start their life and their businesses on the right foot. We know that it's not when you're trying to survive that you have the right headspace to thrive. We will see our real impact within a year, when these women will have all the tools they'll need to start their businesses, when they will have the confidence enough in their financial literacy and their network to start their businesses.
At the First Nation Bank, we believe that that trust is the foundation of success. And by trusting Indigenous women, we give them the chance to reach their full potential.
So, knowing all of that, would you still refuse to lend money to those talented people?
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. So your presentation time has now almost expired. It's now time for the question and answer period. So judges, please submit your questions through the chat function at the bottom of your screen. Click on chat and use the drop down to ensure you send your questions directly to me. So Colin Monk, moderator. Note that this team will have questions translated. So we have a translator, Nancy, here as well. You can submit your questions to me in English through the chat, and I will read them in English, and they will be translated in French. And again, usually teams just have 5 minutes for Q&A, but this team will have exceptionally 10 minutes today because of the translation. So we will start. One moment, I'll get my timer ready. So first question we have today is, what is your success criteria?
Yeah, basically for the success criteria, we want to see how much people have access to the loan program, how much business have been created, what's the value create inside of this, how the debt lose with that. Généralisé, je parle en anglais. Je recommence, désolé. Le nombre de business créés, d'entreprises créées, le nombre de participants, les dettes.
Sorry. I should actually ask Nancy, could you translate the question each time? So Nancy, I'll just read the question again to you one more time. What is your success criteria?
Quels sont vos critères pour le succès et la réussite?
Super. Donc, ça va aller avec le nombre d'entreprises qui vont avoir été créées, le nombre de participants qui vont avoir été acceptés par rapport à nos prêts, aussi l'argent accumulé pour ces personnes-là, puis le nombre de dettes qui a été effacé.
Then Nancy, if you could translate now back to English.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I was taking notes here.
Sure.
Okay, so the criteria are the number of businesses created, the number of participants that are accepted for loans, and the amount of money accumulated for these loans, and the debts that become erased as a result.
Thank you. Next question. What type of business planning have you done?
Qu'est-ce qui est...
Just pour
Quelle planification avez-vous fait côté affaires?
Essentiellement, c'est le même plan d'affaires qu'une banque. Par contre, le gros changement, c'est qu'on ne va pas utiliser un collatéral pour demander les prêts. On va vraiment utiliser la confiance et le système qu'on a mis en place des 7 conditions pour assurer de rembourser. C'est vraiment, on va faire un prêt, on va donner le prêt. À chaque semaine, une partie de ce prêt-là va être remboursée avec un petit montant d'intérêt pour financer les opérations futures. C'est sûr qu'il va y avoir une mise de départ de 10 000 $ pour un interprète, de la documentation qui ont attribué à chacun des besoins linguistiques de les femmes et d'un facilitateur facilitatrice pour le projet.
Okay, I'm just making notes here. M'avez-vous dit un système, vous m'avez dit la confiance, c'est un système à 7, est-ce que vous avez dit 7?
7 conditions.
7 conditions. Okay. So we have, it's the same as the bank, but without collateral because it's based on trust. We have a system with 7 conditions for the loan. Each week a small amount is paid with a small amount of interest that will fund future operations. And there's a $10,000 requirement for an interpreter, documentation, and a facilitator.
And I'll just ask maybe Malcolm and Ines if you could break up your answers a little bit so it's easier for Nancy to translate. So the next question is, how will you provide financial support? Excuse me, how will this project be funded and how will you provide financial support to these women?
D'où vient le financement et comment allez-vous offrir un soutien financier à ces dames?
Oui, essentiellement, le financement de départ viendrait, avec la compétition de pitch actuelle. Aussi, on irait chercher des partenariats avec certaines banques ou, par exemple, l'Indian Business Corporation. Par la suite, l'une des conditions par rapport, c'est de mettre tout le temps de l'argent de côté. Même si on reçoit le prêt, il faut mettre de l'argent de côté pour un fonds d'urgence.
Okay. Une des conditions, c'est de mettre de l'argent de côté pour
dans un fonds d'urgence.
OK. Continue.
Et aussi, il va y avoir un fonds collectif des femmes, surtout les femmes qui ont réussi en affaires grâce à ce fonds-là, pour avoir un autre moyen de supporter les besoins financiers, en plus des groupes, des groupes et des ateliers financiers.
Des groupes d'ateliers financiers, c'est ça?
Exactement.
We have here that the funding at the beginning would start with things like this very pitch that we're doing now. And then there's participation we're hoping from our partnership, I think, from banks and the Indian Business Corporation. And one of the conditions is that the participants have to set aside money for an emergency fund when they get that loan, even though they have to pay it back. And there's also a collective fund for successful women in business who've succeeded to provide more support for financial workshops and groups.
Okay, thank you. I'll move to the next question. Can you provide any data or facts in regards of people impacted, etc.?
Avez-vous des données et aussi des faits pour ceux qui ont été affectés ou impactés?
Par rapport à on n'a pas encore de fait vu qu'on n'a pas encore mis en place le projet. Par contre, oui, on a pu voir les données dans nos sources par rapport aux besoins des femmes autochtones.
We don't have data yet because the program hasn't started, but we do have data with regard to the needs of Indigenous women.
Okay, next question. Given that these individuals are going through financial hardship, how do you ensure that the money will be paid back?
Puisque ces personnes sont en situation financière de problèmes financiers, comment pouvez-vous garantir qu'ils vont être en mesure de le payer?
Excuse me, sorry, there's a second part to that. You mentioned that you are not relying on collateral, but rather trust.
Oui, vous vous fondez sur la confiance plutôt que les collatéraux.
En effet, c'est là que les besoins des 7 conditions arrivent. La première, c'est de ne pas prêter de l'argent aux femmes autochtones et qui souhaitent devenir entrepreneurs. La deuxième, dire verbalement en public dans la communauté qu'on va rembourser l'argent.
Pouvez-vous répéter? On a eu une espèce de problème. Vous avez comme droppé. Pouvez-vous recommencer? Je ne vous ai pas entendu.
La première condition, c'est de prêter seulement aux femmes autochtones qui aspirent à devenir entrepreneurs. La deuxième, c'est qu'ils devront publiquement dire qu'ils vont rembourser cet argent-là dans leur communauté, dans le groupe de réseautage. Ensuite, c'est justement de rejoindre le groupe de réseautage créé, qui est un groupe qui va partager des astuces, qu'on va avoir une imputabilité, une responsabilité à travers ça, et voir à chaque mois ce réseau-là. Les montants, ce sera des petits montants à faible taux d'intérêt qui devront être remboursés à chaque semaine, répartis sur un an. Ils vont avoir un mentor au sein du groupe de solidarité et devront mettre une partie de leur argent dans un fonds d'urgence à chaque fois. Puis les femmes qui ont réussi vont mettre l'argent dans un fonds collectif. Ça, c'est vraiment pour s'assurer qu'il y ait une responsabilité, qu'il y ait une solidarité, que si on trouve des trucs pour pouvoir rembourser. Nous, on croit que les femmes autochtones qui désirent être entrepreneurs, puis les femmes autochtones en général, sont compétentes, ont du savoir-faire, ont de la débrouillardise, puis vont trouver le moyen de rembourser. Il faut juste leur donner l'opportunité.
Indigenous women will find the way to pay back through solidarity and through the needs of the conditions that have been set out in the proposal. The first one being that money would only be lent to Indigenous women becoming entrepreneurs, and they would have to publicly state that they would reimburse this money. And there's also a need to join a networking group to share tips and financial information, and there's a requirement to attend. Also, the money would be lent in small amounts, and some money has to be set aside for an emergency fund. There's a need to work with a mentor within the networking group, and there will be the collective fund from the women who do succeed from the program.
Okay, next question. Is there any bank similar to this in the market? And what is your differentiator?
Y a-t-il des banques semblables sur le marché? Puis comment est-ce que vous différez de celle-ci?
Oui, pas au Canada, par contre, il y a la Grameen Bank au Bangladesh, que Mohamed Yunus a parti. Essentiellement, la façon qu'on se différencie, si nous, on vise précisément les entrepreneuses par rapport à ça. Aussi, on donne le groupe de réseautage, il y a vraiment une fonction, on pourrait dire, d'accélérateur d'entrepreneuriat. C'est pas seulement des moyens de comment gérer son argent, le financial literacy, c'est comment se partir en affaires aussi.
Okay. Yes, this does exist, but not in Canada. It's a grand bank in Bangladesh. And how we're different is that we target women entrepreneurs, and the networking accelerates the entrepreneurship. So.
Pour aussi ajouter, il y a aussi un fonds d'urgence collectif fait à partir des femmes d'affaires qui ont réussi.
Oh, and we must add that there is the collective fund that has been
Your time has now expired.
Successful women.
Excuse me, Nancy, I need to cut you off. I'm sorry, because the time has now expired. Judges, please join me in congratulating the team from HEC Montréal. Judges, we have a couple of minutes as we bring the next team. Please use this time to complete your green sheet and we'll get started momentarily with the next team. Students, you may now leave the meeting. Thank you very much, Malcolm and Ines.
Thank you very much.
Merci.
Au revoir.
Please join me now in welcoming the next team, a student from Memorial University of Newfoundland. Judges, please scroll to their green sheet in your judge handbook. And Abigail, if you could please state your school name so we can ensure your audio is working.
Memorial University of Newfoundland and Labrador.
Thank you very much. Memorial University of Newfoundland and Labrador, you may now begin your 3-minute presentation.
Oh, hold on. I don't think the stream is live yet.
Problem? Eric,
Perfect.
I believe this.
The stream is live.
Okay, wonderful. Go ahead, Abigail.
Women supporting women. It is a phrase we do not hear nearly enough. In Indigenous culture, the grandmother is a highly respected individual within the community. Like many of our own grandmothers, they are our teachers, our healers, and our biggest supporters. In Canada, approximately 50% of Indigenous people live in rural and remote communities. Due to a lack of inclusivity from mainstream healthcare, many of the Indigenous women living in these areas find it difficult to access proper healthcare. So what can we do? Enactus Memorial believes to better the healthcare situation for Indigenous women, we needed to develop a service that could be adopted, understood, and accelerated by Indigenous women entrepreneurs who value the prowess of our grandmothers, or Nokomis. Nokomis is a digital platform service designed to connect Indigenous women with medical and healthcare professionals, services, and healthcare education. In the era of COVID-19, the use of telemedicine has catapulted. This niche of the medical market provides an interesting opportunity in which Indigenous Canadian women entrepreneurs can leverage. Telemedicine is a resource that is available to many non-Indigenous and Indigenous Canadians across the country. However, there is no virtual clinic solely committed to serving Indigenous women in rural communities. Our goal is to provide virtual and over-the-phone medical expertise to these women. This service is adept for connecting women with in-person medical professionals within their community, providing one-on-one healthcare advice and support, and educating Indigenous women in health equity. With the help of a variety of other organizations within the province doing related work, Enactus Memorial will create a digital application dedicated to serving the health needs of Indigenous women. This platform will have a rotation of physicians committed to the cause and who are knowledgeable in women's health. Our hope is to implement both Indigenous cultural healing practices and conventional medical practices to ensure that we are meeting the needs of the women. This service will create new and accessible opportunities for Indigenous women to access healthcare remotely. It will create an entrepreneurial ripple amongst Indigenous women entrepreneurs who can relate to the problem, and it will generate long-term inclusivity. Financially, the option of telehealth for Indigenous women will be accessible like any other traditional healthcare service. It would be a service that should be absorbed through taxpayers' dollars. Any cost incurred during startup will far outweigh the gains of supporting Indigenous women's health. The success and impact of this service will be measured by referral and client retention rates. With the help, connections, and knowledge of Indigenous female entrepreneurs and organizations across the province, we can spread telehealth across the country to Indigenous women. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So it's now time for the question and answer period. Judges, please submit your questions through the chat function at the bottom of your screen. click on chat, use the drop down to ensure you send your questions directly to me, Colin Monk, moderator. And I won't start the timer until we receive the first question. Okay, first question. What is your business model of funding besides tax dollars?
So I feel that if we can't get tax dollars to fund the project, we can certainly reach out to other organizations who are already doing similar work. Technology is really booming in Newfoundland and Labrador, and this would be a great opportunity for them to fund what we're trying to do, because everybody should have access to proper medical care. So reaching out to a new tech startup or even some of the other Indigenous health organizations that are striving for more accessibility would be a great way to fund the business model.
Next question. You drove the message of accessibility throughout your presentation. How will women with limited resources have access to this service?
Absolutely. So, great question. If women don't have accessibility to, say, technology or a cell phone, I think a great way to promote this to all women in rural areas would be to market it in the doctor's office of your local community. Maybe you don't have access to that all the time, but during your next visit, perhaps they could suggest the phone number to our platform, or tell a friend about it, or put it on the news. Just marketing the platform whichever way you can. You don't necessarily have to have a cell phone to do it. You could call it in and it would still function in the exact same way.
Thank you. Any other questions? Please send them through the chat, judges. Next question. How do you define success in data and facts?
I think success would be defined by our outreach and our growth, our exponential growth. So as more women are able to download the app or the platform and utilize it, we would generate numbers that way, and we would be able to measure our success through retention and client referral rates, just through the sharing of the app through social media or on the internet.
Thank you. Judges, if you have any other questions, please submit them in the chat. Next question. Why is the service only available to women?
We decided to promote the service only to women because the healthcare system really neglects women as a minority already, and especially in the Indigenous community, people aren't supporting these women hardly enough. So we decided that to make it just for women, to have a safe space for these women to connect with other women going through similar things, similar healthcare situations, or even just to chat along with somebody in your community. Like, it's a great way to spread outreach amongst women. Women empowerment is super important, and it's not spoken about nearly enough.
Thank you. Next question. Is there any similar model in the market?
Absolutely. So telemedicine is booming right now, but there's nothing that's strategically promoted to Indigenous women. So in the aspect that telemedicine is on the rise, it's a good way to bring in entrepreneurial women, and it's a great venture. But as to what we're promoting it towards, there's nothing similar on the market.
Next question. What healthcare professionals will you be partnering with? And will there be an incentive to those professionals participating in the program?
I think that would have to vary. I would love to have Indigenous healthcare professionals run the program alongside the Indigenous women entrepreneurs that we would be hoping to partner with. It could be a volunteer situation, or it could also be cost incurred from the government if the government were to fund a program like this.
Question. What is your target market? Example, which province and city?
Well, right now we were hoping to start in Labrador, but I really think that this could be something of benefit all across Canada, Southern Canada in particular. The title of the project, Nokomis, comes from Southern Canada. It means the Great Mother of Ojibwa, and I thought that was really special and promoted what we were trying to do. So ultimately, as a startup, started close to home, Labrador, but on a wide scale measure, hopefully all across the province.
Next question, what challenges do you foresee facing?
I think the biggest challenge we would foresee facing would probably be getting the funding right away from the government.
Your time has expired. Judges, please join me in congratulating Abigail from the Memorial University of Newfoundland.
Thank you.
Judges, we have a couple of minutes now as we bring the next team. Please use this team to complete your green sheet and we'll get started momentarily. Okay, please join me now in welcoming the team from Nova Scotia Community College, Ivany. Judges, please scroll to their green sheet in your judge handbook. And I'll have each of the students please state your name, your school name, excuse me, so we can ensure your audio is working.
NSCC Ivany Campus.
Thank you.
NSCDC Ivany Campus.
Thank you.
NSCC, sorry. NSCC Ivany Campus.
Thank you. And we're just waiting for your slide to come up. Eric, do you see their slide? I don't believe, I'm still seeing the Nokomis slide. We'll just wait for your slide to come up. We'll just contact our tech person. Vince, do you hear me? Hello, Vince? Vince is our tech person. I'm just trying to get our next slide up. Oh, there we go. And Vince, could we move to the next slide? Perfect, there we go. Thank you very much. Okay, let's get started. So one moment. Okay, so please join me in welcoming the team from Nova Scotia Community College, Ivany. You may now begin your presentation. Thank you.
Greetings from Nova Scotia. We want to acknowledge that we are in Mi'kmaq, the ancestral and unceded territory of the Mi'kmaq people. There are 13 Mi'kmaq communities in Nova Scotia. We are the oldest province in Canada, but the Mi'kmaq people are a young and growing part of our population. Yet they remain underrepresented in the labor markets and as business owners. There are only 43 Indigenous businesses listed in Nova Scotia, and of those, only 6 exporters show up.
At Enactus NSCC Ivany Campus, we want to be part of the solution to provide opportunities for our Mi'kmaq entrepreneurs to show up. Roughly 60% of Indigenous peoples live in rural areas, which tend to have less diversified economies and lower labor market attachment. To address these inequalities, developing resources and support networks created by and for Indigenous peoples is vital.
Digital Spark is an innovative training program that will be developed and facilitated in collaboration with Indigenous people. NSCC has 13 campuses across the province. Not unlike our 13 Mi'kmaq communities, we will partner with local band consorts to offer the training on resource or at the nearest campus location. Digital Spark is unique because it's Mi'kmaq led, but also because it is very difficult to access the digital training in our province. Our training will include digital marketing, search engine optimization, e-commerce, social media, and mobile applications.
Last year, online sales were expected to come close to $5 trillion, and in 2017, Nova Scotia exported almost $7 billion. E-commerce will allow the entrepreneurs to not only reach new markets nationally, but internationally.
The program will be offered over 10 weeks at 4 hours a week, providing flexibility for participation if the entrepreneur is working and or running their business. We're committed to taking the appropriate time to ensure the input of all our stakeholders. So plan to launch our program in winter 2023. Our goal is to have up to 25 participants. We will strategically partner with 1 to 2 reserve locations as a pilot.
With a budget of approximately $20,000, we look to partner with NSCC, government programs, Mi'kmaq communities, and local financial institutions.
We will start measuring success through the exposure generated through their new websites and social media accounts. Visits, clicks, likes, comments, and shares are all useful marketing tools to increase awareness of the company.
These results will start during the program. Increasing awareness will lead to an increase of sales for the participants. To begin, sales will be a secondary measure, but we would expect to see an increase by winter 2024.
Please help us by providing the spark this growing and important segment of our province.
Thank you very much. Your presentation time has expired. It's now time for the question and answer period. Judges, please submit your questions like last time through the chat function at the bottom of your screen. Click on chat and use the drop down to ensure you send your questions directly to me, Colin Monk, moderator. First question, what challenges do you foresee?
So our biggest challenge could be funding, but we are confident there is interest in helping this target group, and the people understand the need for digital training because it makes sense. And there's a real world example. The province of Ontario is offering up to $50,000 as a COVID response. And one eligible item for the funding is to take business online.
Thank you. Judges, please submit any more questions you have in the chat. Next question, what is your area of doing this?
So actually, we didn't think about this question, and because we are kind of new to this project, I think we're gonna talk about this later, after we kind of put our project on the ground. Sorry about that.
Okay, next question. What will the program workshop look like, and how will it empower business owners to move to the digital space?
Well, we want to provide training on how the business owners can measure their impact and how they track analytics and sales. And we will provide simple tracking sheets for them to complete in a periodic basis, monthly, and during their time in the program, and for up to 1 year following.
Okay, next question. What cities or provinces do you intend to operate in?
We intend in operate it in Nova Scotia. It's based in Halifax City.
Thank you. Any other questions, judges? Another question came through. What innovation do you have in your business model?
So I think for now, I think for the delivery for our future program, I think we need to have more discussion with our stakeholder consultations, because we believe we will discover in a unique way for personal connections. And I think, yeah, anything depends on in the future, we might provide in-person classes, video tutorials, online lectures, and etc. So sorry, did I kind of reply for that question?
We'll jump to the next question, thanks. For small mom and pop businesses, how will your project impact their operations if they lack the resources to participate?
We plan to hire some digital expert and Indigenous facilitator and lister to develop and deliver the program, to make sure that we provide the promotional material to communities and advertise the program. And we also look to fund the funding and advocate for our participants by helping facilitate the application to the government program for the training.
Next question. How much will this cost?
So we are, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, we were told that it would be approximately $20,000 for 25 participants. This worked out to be approximately $800 per person. In terms of continuing education program offered at NSCC, this cost seems to be reasonable, and we plan to look forward the corporate partners, some financial institutions that are promoting indigenous banking, such as PMO, TD, or CIPC. And in addition, we will look at the Aboriginal financial institutions to see what program they are currently offering.
Next question. Do Indigenous business growth resources already exist in the area?
Until now, we could not find any Indigenous develop or deliver digital training yet. Nova Scotia Business is currently offering a program. Minimum cost is $2,000, and participants are eligible to have some cost covered, but it is on the competition basis. Program requirement.
The time has expired. Excuse me. Please join me in congratulating the team from Nova Scotia Community College, Ivany. Thank you very much, students. You may now leave the meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Judges, we now have a scheduled break for 5 minutes. So let's meet back at 2. It's 2 o'clock. If you could please ensure you're back at your screens no later than 2:05 p.m. Eastern. And we'll begin with the final 3 presentations. Thank you very much. Okay, it's 2:05. Looks like judges are back. We'll start going with the next team that we have here from George Brown College. Great. Everybody's ready. Judges, please scroll to their green sheet in your judge handbook. And students, if you could please state your school name so we can ensure your audio is working.
George Brown College.
Could you also state your name, the school as well, so I can make sure your audio is working?
George Brown College.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Okay, George Brown College, you may now begin your presentation.
According to Maclean's magazine, Indigenous women are unable to work full-time due to family commitments and educational shortcomings, such as limited financial literacy, which narrows their career options. Entrepreneurship is an alternative path. However, for many Indigenous women, they lack confidence. When they do pursue a business, they face gender and cultural barriers in the male-dominated realm of applying for loan and venture capital. Despite these barriers, $1 invested in an Indigenous business multiplies and contributes $3.60 to the Canadian economy. Our solution to the plight of Indigenous women is Project Acorn. For Indigenous peoples, acorns represent life, and our path to a new life will consist of entrepreneurial workshops. Our Project Acorn has 3 phases. In the pre-launch, anticipated to be in May and June of this year, our Enactus George Brown team will solicit partnerships for participants and resources through the Native Women's Association of Canada, the Association for Native Development, and the Performing and Visual Arts, our very own George Brown College Indigenous Initiatives Group, and our entrepreneurship business incubator platform, Start GBC.
Next is Phase 1, anticipated to be in July and August of this year. We'll host 5 workshops through Zoom, which enables unrestricted access to Project Acorn. The workshops will be a catalyst to nurture their business concepts with training in marketing, operations, finance, and funding options en route to completing their business model canvas. Lastly, in Phase 2, we'll host a pitch competition in December of this year. It will be held over Zoom to ensure unrestricted access for our judges to determine which of our female Indigenous entrepreneurs will win prize money for funding, and for our participants to pitch from anywhere in Canada. We will measure success by the number of Indigenous women who, 1, attended and completed all workshops, 2, attended our pitch competition, and 3, number of businesses registered. We believe all participants in Project Acorn will be winners. In the short term, they will have demonstrated confidence to begin their journey. They will have gained new skills through our workshops and increased their personal networks to enable them to partner and grow their business ideas or existing businesses. In the longer term, even for those who don't place in our pitch competition, they will have the experience and know-how to continue to pursue the entrepreneur journey. You've heard our brief plan for Project Acorn. You've sensed our enthusiasm. Now, we would like to request your financial support to launch Project Acorn. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It's now time for the question and answer period. So judges, please submit your questions through the chat function as usual. At the bottom of your screen, click on chat and use the drop down to ensure you send your questions directly to me, Colin Monk, moderator. We'll start with the first question. Second, let me get the timer ready. So first question, what are the eligibility requirements to participate in this program?
So some of the requirements for this program, honestly, is just your Indigenous women's desire to have a business and to learn about it. That's literally all it takes.
Thank you. Next question. What is your success criteria?
So how we will measure success is ultimately at the end of all of our phases, we would like to have the number of businesses registered and businesses started. That's how we will measure success.
Thank you. Next question. What innovation do you have in your business model?
So in terms of innovation, I think it's a matter of utilizing the online community, utilizing the partnerships that we want to create, our internal one that we have at George Brown College, and as well as ANPAVA and other Indigenous partnerships that we hope to create. So in doing that, we hope to bridge the two to have our program work with their values, and we think that will be an innovation for it.
Thank you. Next question. What challenges do you expect in carrying out Project Acorn?
Yes, so we do anticipate problems, such as access to internet, as we do know that many of them do come from remote reserves. So that is why we want to partner with associations such as Native Women's Association of Canada and the Association for Native Development in the Performing and Visual Arts. As with their partnership, we'll be able to work through the details with them as they know their community better than we do, and they can connect with Indigenous women on remote reserves. As the most important thing for us is that we want equal opportunity and access for everyone to participate in our program.
Next question, could you chat through your budget a little bit more? What sort of specific costs will the budgeted $10,000 be going towards?
So in terms of our budget, we anticipate $200 for a Zoom membership for the year, $500 for incidentals such as licensing fees, about a $1,000 to $2,000 online marketing campaign, just so we can get the traffic in. We anticipate $3,000 to $5,000 for prize money, and then $1,000 to $2,000 for any miscellaneous expenses.
Thank you. Next question, what area of operations do you plan to have Project Acorn operating in?
So we plan to start it off internally with internally in George Brown College, as we do have an Indigenous Initiatives program ongoing in the campus. That way we can test pilot with our current program, as we want to get a full understanding of how we need to tailor our program to Indigenous women's needs and values.
Next question, do you have a backup plan? What do you do if no one registers for Project Acorn?
We will keep putting the word out there. We will also review what we are currently doing, how we will review our approach as to why is it that we're not getting the registrations for our program, and rework from there.
Speaking of putting the word out there, next question, how are you planning to reach out?
Yes, so we plan to reach out through, so first of all, through our internal department at George Brown College called Indigenous Initiatives Department. And then from there, we will expand to the Native Women's Association of Canada and other associations available for Indigenous people, such as the Association for Native Development, the Performing and Visual Arts.
Thank you. Next question. Are you expecting any profits to invest in future operations?
That's not something we have thought of at the moment, but we will definitely investigate that. So thank you for asking us that question.
Judges, any other questions? Feel free to send them in the chat. At this point, there's around 20 seconds left. Is the $10,000 a one-time cost?
So we anticipate getting funding through grants or reaching out to other organizations who are interested in helping us with this program. So we anticipate needing like more money to help this happen.
Your time has expired. Judges, please join me in congratulating the team from George Brown College. Thank you. Judges, we have a couple of minutes as we bring the next team. Please use this time to complete your green sheet and we'll get started momentarily. Students, thank you very much. You may now leave the meeting. Okay, we will now move on to the next team. Please join me in welcoming the team from Wilfrid Laurier University. Judges, please scroll to their green sheet in your judge handbook. And students from Wilfrid Laurier, if you could please state your school name so we can ensure your audio is working. Students, could you each state your school name?
Wilfrid Laurier.
Great, we can hear you just fine. So Wilfrid Laurier University, welcome. You may now begin your presentation.
Growing up part of various minority groups, we have all come to understand the importance of education surrounding our cultural norms and traditions. Specifically in Canada, we see a large deficit of information and/or teaching about Indigenous values and ideals within society.
However, we, as social change makers, recognize the importance of representation regarding their traditions, especially their value of both art and nature.
That's why we started Eco Homes Woodwork. And although the importance of woodworking may not seem visible, it is a traditional skill that elders and local experts would love to share with the Indigenous youth. As generational trauma is prevalent in the lives of these youth, it is important to find ways to restore their connection with their heritage and culture. Our idea ignites change in the lives of Indigenous youth as we plan to encourage them to create and sell artistic wood pieces which represent their heritage that can become a sustaining business for them. We plan to reach out to these individuals through high school and university initiatives, which may inspire them to pursue woodworking as a visible career path.
There are various types of woodworking techniques that can be taught to these youth, which allows them to connect to their elders in many ways. And by finding ways to connect with their culture, these youth are able to create generational bonds and spark change within their immediate community and beyond.
This approach is truly innovative, as we are able to uphold Indigenous values and traditions and customs while creating sustainable businesses and careers for communities and individuals that have been neglected by our society. We strive to encourage the Indigenous youth to find passion in a career that will mean something to them.
We plan to connect with the advisors of the Aboriginal Entrepreneurship Program, as this program will help us create facilities and platforms of which products can be created and sold.
More importantly, by avoiding the use of machinery for mass production and encouraging the use of traditional techniques, we will prevent the emission of greenhouse gases, which respect the cultural beliefs Indigenous communities hold of protecting the land in which we live on.
We are estimating seeing results within 6 months and by the latest 12. Our implementation plan is a process of scheduling milestones, assigning tasks and deadlines, and finally, allocating resources for the youth artists to use. Once we have grown to a comfortable and sustaining position through the help of social media and publicity, we will begin to sell the pieces and help these entrepreneurs market themselves effectively to create profit.
We hope to interest our audience in creating wood pieces that represent their culture, whilst encouraging them to expose their culture and pride. And we plan to measure this by analyzing the amount of participation from these individual or Indigenous youth, and through our incentives, as well as the revenue generated through these pieces.
Thank you. It is now time for the question and answer period. Judges, please submit your questions through the chat function at the bottom of your screen. Click on chat and use the drop down to ensure you send your questions directly to me, Colin Monk, moderator. So let's start with the first question. What is the cost of this operation?
We are planning to start our operation in Kitchener as we're in the Haldeman Tract, and seeing as we don't really need to fund transportation, we're estimating around $25,000 to fund our facility use and as well materials for these Indigenous artists to use.
Thank you. Next question. By leveraging machinery for mass production, how will this impact the intricacy, uniqueness, and personalization of the wood pieces? Would you like me to repeat the question?
Yes, please.
Sure. By leveraging machinery for mass production, how will this impact the intricacy, uniqueness, and personalization of the wood pieces?
By removing that element of the machinery, we plan to have these pieces be very individualistic, as the artists have full capabilities of what designs they put into these wood pieces, as opposed to it being a cut and cookie design that you could find in Home Depot or Home Sense.
Thank you. Next question. How are you planning to fund this?
Well, as we mentioned in the presentation, we were interested in the Aboriginal program that the government offers. And since they accept applications in an ongoing basis, we would plan to apply to this program that can help us start this project.
Thank you. Next question. Can you break down the $25,000 cost?
Yes. Well, we made a few cuts on our transportation costs since we plan on starting off in Kitchener. So our transportation would be around $10,000. Then we plan on spending around $6,000 on wood materials and tools. Since we plan on starting off in a smaller scale, sorry. Then we plan to have nearly around $10,000 for salaries and roughly $2,000 to start off with our advertisements. And that's because we plan on starting off with just social media advertisements.
Thank you. Next question. How will this project positively impact and empower the Indigenous youth?
We believe that this project will both positively impact and empower these youth because we're allowing them to connect back to their cultural roots that have been severed due to generational trauma. And we also plan to have the teachers of this woodworking techniques be elders from those communities as well. So we plan to inspire them to connect back with their cultural roots and really just take pride in who they are.
Thank you. How many pieces of art are you planning to produce?
We plan to roughly start off with around perhaps 1,000 pieces of art, but that is dependent on the amount of Indigenous employees that we are able to connect with. So it's really just a matter of the amount of artists that we are able to employ in order to start off our business.
Next question. What will be your measurement of success?
We will measure our success by the number of people of Indigenous youth that we can reach and that we can involve in this project. Besides that, we will also measure our impact in the revenue that selling these pieces will generate, as well as the amount of non-Indigenous people that we can connect with and allow them to integrate Indigenous communities into their lives through these pieces of art.
A similar question. What is your success and exit criteria?
Our success and exit criteria is we hope to help these Indigenous youth establish sustaining businesses through the creation of their art pieces. We are simply just in sparking imagination and hoping to help them develop their businesses. And then from there, we will just be assisting them in marketing themselves. And then once they're sustaining, we plan to back off and let them have full reign of their businesses.
Question, how will you spread the message?
We plan to start off by social media, and also by connecting
Your
with
time has expired. Judges, please join me in congratulating the team from Wilfrid Laurier University. Judges, we now have a couple of minutes as we bring the next team in. Please use this time to complete your green sheet and we'll get started momentarily. Students, thank you. Excuse me, thank you. You may now leave the meeting. Please join me now in welcoming the team from Okanagan College. Judges, please scroll to their green sheet in your judge handbook. And if the two students from Okanagan College, could you please state your school name so we can ensure your audio is working?
Go ahead.
Okanagan College.
Wonderful, thank you. Okanagan College, you may now begin your presentation.
Imagine you are a young Indigenous artist and you have just completed your first piece of art worth selling. You have invested countless hours, poured your emotion into it, and are ready to share it with the world. But where do you begin? How can a young artist hope to make a living when there are so many barriers to selling their work? The sad reality is that many Indigenous artists struggle when it comes time to sell their artwork. At a time of heightened awareness for the treatment of Indigenous peoples in Canada, now is the time to bring their stories to the forefront and into the 21st century.
That's where we come in. Hi, my name's Rebecca, and this is my partner Jackson, and we're presenting our idea, Digital Roots. Digital Roots is an initiative that supports Indigenous artists by digitizing their work using non-fungible tokens, known as NFTs, then selling it in marketplaces on the internet. We project that 90% of our sales will be given back to the original creator and that they'll be able to receive an additional royalty whenever their artwork changes hands.
So this sounds great, but how will it actually work? When a work of art is digitized, it becomes a unique digital asset that cannot be replicated. This gives the artist the ability to sell the exclusive ownership rights of said asset. NFTs operate on a public digital ledger known as a blockchain. Rather than regular digital artwork that someone can download and use for free, NFTs have a unique signature that can be verified in this public ledger.
Our target audience has two segments. The first is comprised of Indigenous artists wanting to digitize their work in order to reach a larger audience. The second is the fast-growing digital community of NFT art collectors, investors, and consumers. These people buy digital art to either resell at a later date or because they're fans of the artist's work. This initiative will accelerate Indigenous entrepreneurship by providing artists with revenue, employing Indigenous business students, and acting as the connective bridge between Indigenous artists and their digital audience. We will measure our success by the number of pieces sold and their value. In our pilot year, we plan to help 5 or more Okanagan artists, but there are over 5,000 Indigenous artists in Canada. This gives us the potential to expand across the country.
NFTs are a windfall that artists all over the world are taking advantage of. In 2016, Statistics Canada found that Indigenous artists make 68 cents for every dollar non-Indigenous artists make. Digital Roots will close that gap.
Thank you very much. We will now start with the question and answer period for 5 minutes. Excuse me. So judges, again, please submit your questions directly to me through the chat function at the bottom of your screen. Click on chat, use the drop down to ensure you send your questions directly to me. Colin Monk, moderator. First question. Excuse me. How will you educate the Indigenous community about this initiative?
When we meet with an artist, we will fully explain our business model, how we'll digitize their work, and how it will help them create more revenue for their business and for themselves.
Next question. What is the cost of operations? How are you planning to fund this?
We believe that we can use our own funds to incubate the idea. Our Enactus team at Okanagan College has a pool designated for that. There are also government grants and corporations built for funding Indigenous projects, like the Métis Financial Corporation in BC.
Question, is this cost a one-time cost?
Yes, this would be a one-time cost. After their NFT is sold, we would take a 10% cut, and then they are able to receive a royalty every time the NFT changes hands again.
Question. Currently, the fees involved in converting artwork to NFTs is quite high. How will you navigate those costs and how will you make it sustainable?
That is actually a misconception. There aren't fees on every marketplace to create NFTs. And in fact, the biggest one, known as OpenSea, allows you to create an NFT and list it on their exchange for completely free. And when it comes to sustainability, our 10% cut is in order to recover costs, and the ability for the artist to receive a royalty every time the piece of work changes hands will improve sustainability.
Thank you. Next question. How many individuals or volunteers or employees do you foresee?
Well, right now it's just me and my partner, Rebecca, but we see ourselves recruiting and training Indigenous business students from Okanagan College. It's hard to say how many. It really depends on how big this project gets.
Thank you. Judges, if you have any other questions, please send them through the chat. Still have about 2 minutes left. Question, how will the artists have access to their funds?
Through us. We would provide them with access to the funds.
Any other questions, judges, for the team from Okanagan College? Question, what challenges do you foresee?
So one of the biggest challenges we anticipate is the technical knowledge and skills we need to create and sell these NFTs. We aren't experts yet, but we have plans to conduct extensive research and connect with people who have experience and knowledge with NFTs. And as we learn and expand this project, we can then take that education and train other students.
Thank you. Any other questions, judges? We still have about a minute left, so don't hesitate if you have any other questions for Jackson and Rebecca. How will you educate the community?
Similar to the first question, when we meet with the artists, we hope to educate them, and we hope that they will also educate their peers in what they're doing. But it will basically be by breaking down our business model and maybe showing them a few technical aspects to how an NFT works and is created.
Okay, thank you. Any last question? Jackson and Rebecca. Okay, the question and answer period time has now expired. So judges, please join me in congratulating the team from Okanagan College, our final team of the day. Thank you very much. Jackson and Rebecca, you may now leave the meeting. Thank you very much. Congratulations.